back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys, I'm here today to do my June wrap up. I read quite a few things in June. I did the Getting Graphic Readathon and I have done an entire vlog talking about everything I read for that. So I'm not going to do a wrap up for that because it's basically all in that video. I'll just link that video for you guys to go and watch if you want to see all of the graphic, comics, mangas, things like that I read in June. I managed to get through 13 books. Some of these are really huge books, so I'm really happy with how I did. And a lot of them were books that have been sitting on my TBR a while, so I was glad to get around to them. I read a book on my Kindle and that was Into the Water, which is by Paula Hawkins. This is by the same author who wrote Girl on the Train, which is why I picked it up. I'm doing a little mini book club holiday with Mercedes, Eleanor and Lauren. This one was good. It was a thriller. I don't really read many thrillers. I did enjoy bits of it. There are a lot of characters though, and it's not a long book, so I felt like it wasn't as developed as I would have liked. I had quite a few 3-star reads this month, but I did like everything I read this month because it was all 3 stars and above. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Sorcery, which is by Terry Pratchett. This one is the 5th one that was published and I am reading them in publication order, and it follows a young boy who is a sorcerer who gets planted into the Discworld and essentially causes a whole lot of havoc. It is good fun. I did enjoy it. I gave it 3 stars, but Rincewind is not my favourite character, although I do love the luggage. So it was just a 3-star read, and yeah, that's about it. Next up, getting 3 stars as well, is Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, which was quite an old book. I think it came out in the 60s originally, so it's definitely a bit dated. But I still really enjoyed it. It's very theological. It talks a lot about exploration and about discovery and about innovation, but it doesn't really focus on characters, hence why I gave it a 3 stars, but I did really enjoy it as a kind of thought-provoking little read. Next up is one of the aforementioned tomes, and that is The Stone of Farewell, which is by Tad Williams. This one is the 2nd book in his Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series, and it's about 850 pages, so it is a long read. I was thankfully audiobooking these and I really enjoyed the audiobook, so I would recommend them if you're looking to read this series. And this one is a very classic fantasy series. It's a good, fun classic fantasy, but it is a slow burn, and if you don't like that you won't enjoy this series. So I gave this one 3 stars. It was very likeable. I got straight back into the story, but it did take a long time to go anywhere. So just 3 stars for this. Another one that just got 3 stars from me, and I was slightly disappointed by this, is Empress of the Fall, which is by David Hare. This is the 1st book in his new quartet, which is called the Sun Surge Quartet. It's set in the same world as the Moontide Quartet, but follows the story of different characters later after the events of the Moontide Quartet have taken place. I liked bits of this, but I found some of the characters really irritating to the point where I just could not get along with them and could not empathise with them. And it really took me out of the story at times because it did feel a lot more predictable than the first series. I don't know if it was just me being in a bit of a reading funk, because this did take me a very long time to get through. I ended up reading this over a few months, which for me is crazy. So it could have been that, but it just didn't have the same allure as the first few in the other series. So I do think I'll continue because I am intrigued about what's going to happen, and I feel like the ending and second half of this book was a lot stronger than the first half. So I am excited to see where it goes, and I do love the world, and I hope that it gets better than this. I just think the characters didn't gel with me so well in this, and I really loved the characters in his first series. So I'd like to have that happen again in this series. Next up, moving on to 3.5 stars, I gave Tad Williams' 2 Green Angel Tower Part 1, which is called Siege. This one got 3.5 stars. I definitely felt like the story was moved along in this one. We had a lot more development, a lot more action, and it did get very exciting towards the end, which made this a really enjoyable read as a whole, and it definitely stepped it up from book 2 and from book 1, both of which got 3 stars, so I felt like this was a very satisfying book for classic fantasy, because I'm not a huge classic fantasy reader. I do tend to find it quite slow and predictable at times, but this was definitely a fun one as a whole, and by this point I was very invested in the characters too, so I wanted to find out what was going to happen, so 3.5 stars for this one. Another one that also got 3.5 stars is this one. It's called The Long and Short of It by Jodie Taylor. It's actually a collection of her short stories that are all set in the same world as the Chronicles of St. Mary's series, and I definitely love all of the short stories. I think some are better than others, which is why it only gets a 3.5, because some are amazing and I love them so much, particularly the prequel story. I forget the name of it, but the prequel is amazing. I love that. And a couple of the other ones that are a bit longer are also great. But some of them are really short, and so they can't really develop to the extent I would like them to, and so they just weren't as good. So 3.5 stars for this as a whole. Next up, I actually finished a series, and that is the final one in the Memory, Sorrow and Thorn series, which is 2 Green Angel Tower Part 2, which is called Storm, again by Tad Williams. This one actually got 4 stars from me because it was definitely a good series ender. I really enjoyed it. I found myself totally drawn in. The plot was a lot quicker in this because obviously it's nearing the conclusion of all the plot lines. There were a lot of things coming together in this that felt really exciting and really well done. So it just worked as an all-round excellent fun book, and I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. And I'll be reviewing these 3 in the series quite soon together because I've already reviewed the first, so I'll do a joint review of the other ones in the series very soon. Next up, I read Godblind, which is by Anna Stevens, and this one was sent to me for review, and I'm very happy it was, because this is a grim dark fantasy. I've actually done a full review of this, so I'll put a link to my joint review of 3 fantastic fantasy books where I talk about this and one of the other books I'm about to mention too. So go and check it out there, but I gave this 4 stars. Another one that I ended up actually audiobooking was Sasha, which is by Joel Shepherd, I believe. And this was a kind of impulse buy. I think someone recommended it to me and it kept popping up on my Audible recommendations, so I thought I'll give it a go, why not, I've got a credit. And I really enjoyed this. It was a very much female-focused fantasy with the female as a main character. It was set in a world that was kind of divided between 2 tribes, and she is a princess who has renounced her title to become a warrior and learn the ways of this other tribe, and it's just really wonderful. I really enjoyed it, and I definitely really think the series is going to be a strong one. So I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm currently working on the next one in the series as well, so I'll probably review them together. The next book I have to mention is The Dragonlords Fool's Gold by John Hollins. Again, this is one of the books I've already reviewed in my 3 Fabulous Fantasy video, or whatever that's called, so I'll link that below, go and check it out. And I loved this book. It was totally up my street. The humour was amazing. It was sword and sorcery, but it was a fun kind of heist as well, and it was very witty, very charming, lots of great characters to get behind, lots of tropes being subverted, and I loved it. So I gave this a 4.5 stars, and I just would hugely recommend that you check this one out, if anything, especially if you like sword and sorcery, because it is so good. And then finally I had 2 5-star reads this month, which makes me so happy because I love it when I find 5-star books. The first of those was All Good Things by Emma Newman. You might have seen this in my top 5 books of the year video because it is currently one of my top 5. I absolutely adore the Split World series. It doesn't start out as strong as it ends, so if you read the first book I don't think it's a representation of the entire series, which is 5 books long. This one's the 5th. But my goodness, it just grows and it gets better and it gets exciting and way more heavy on the feminism, which was crazy and awesome to see in fantasy because I don't really see that very often. And it was so girl power that I can't even tell you anything more than that in high praise. It was so good, and I absolutely adored the conclusion to the books. I'm really sad it's over, but I hope that she writes more fantasy because I just love when Emma Newman does fantasy. It's so good, and she's the only author who's ever managed to write urban fantasy and keep me interested. Usually I give up after a few books, but not this one. Definitely, it's just great. So I definitely recommend this. 5 stars. I will be reviewing this very soon too. And finally, I read this beast, which is absolutely my favourite book of the year, which is crazy so far anyway. The Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. It was incredible. I cannot even rave more highly about this. I genuinely adored it. I do not think I could really fault this because of how many things happening that I just loved and I was so surprised by. I was in awe of the characters. I just adored their motives and their way that they came across. They were so real, they were so genuine, they were so exciting, and it was just perfection in all of the ways. I honestly loved this, and I couldn't fault it because I was that blown away by this book. I expected to like it, but I was just blown away. So this one also got 5 stars and is currently my favourite book of the year. So if you're going to read anything, especially if you like epic fantasy, try this one. Well, the first one in the series is The Grace of Kings, so try that one and then this one because it's amazing. So I will be reviewing this one very, very soon. I've already reviewed The Grace of Kings, so I'll put a link to that. But go and check it out and please pick it up because it is exceptionally, exceptionally good. And I cannot wait for book 3, which I think comes out next year. So I've got a bit of a wait, but I will wait patiently because I really, really love this. It's so, so good. So that is everything I read in the month of June. I'm really, really happy with how much I managed to get read. It was pretty crazy when I think about how long a lot of the Tad Williams and Ken Liu books were. So, so long. So very, very awesome, and I'm very happy I got through as much as I did. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.